All right, welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio. I am your host, Scott Branson, founder and publisher of silverandblacktoday.com. And we have a happy occasion to celebrate today. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, some bad news. Every week as we come on the air, the great booming voice that you hear here on CBS Sports Radio, voiceover legend Chris Corley. That's the voice of the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio. And when I say he's a legend, I'm not using that term loosely. Chris Corley is a legend in the world of voiceover work. And this week we lost Chris to pancreatic cancer at the very young age of just 55 years old. Over a 36-year career, Corley has been the voice of Fox, Major League Baseball, the Discovery Channel, Nickelodeon, and the Broadway show and tour of the Book of Mormon. Not to mention being an on-air talent in some of America's biggest markets. Just a massive loss for all of us and the world of radio voiceover. And we want to dedicate this show to him and send our deepest condolences to his son, Christopher. I'm proud he'll continue to be the voice of the Silver and Black today here until we absolutely have to change it. Chris, thank you for your talent and work, and you will be sorely missed. There's no question about that. So, again, Chris Corley, voice here on Silver and Black today. We'll miss him, and certainly his work will survive. Okay, back to the subject at hand, and that, of course, is Raiders football. And as always, I'm joined by my somewhat new and improved team of co-hosts, contributor and NFL draft analyst for silverandblacktoday.com, Kelly Kreiner, and former longtime Los Angeles Lakers scout and NFL aficionado, Chaz Osborne. Welcome, guys. Everybody, Kelly 40. Today is your 40th birthday. Yesterday is your 40th birthday.
Yesterday, yeah.
That's right. So are you feeling every bit of 40?
I am right now, but that's got nothing to do with the age.
It's all the shots.
Yeah, so no, Kelly.
I worked last night. I went home. I went straight to bed. I had the most boring 40th birthday possible.
Oh, man.
That's not good.
Make something up for the show.
Oh, that's right. Do something, man. Come on. But Kelly, happy 40th birthday, man. And we certainly appreciate you being here, not feeling on top of your game, but he will bring his A game because he's a gamer.
He played like a champion. I'm wondering, how much hate mail did Kelly get after his bold NCAA prediction last week?
I don't know. Did you get any hate mail, man?
I didn't see anything, but I think we saw that Murray State was, in fact, a fraud when they got boat raced by Florida State. It was embarrassing.
Yep. Well, that was the problem. The show, we got cut off 15 minutes early because of the basketball, so they didn't get to hear your whole spiel about if they do win the first game, double down on them in the second game.
Well, that's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, if you bet sports, that's how it is. If you've got an inkling of something, if you're wrong the first time, you're not going to be wrong again.
Never.
Yeah.
You're right 51% of the time.
You're only wrong once every 90 times? Or what's the statistics for you?
Well, if you're wrong, just keep doubling up. It's just 50-50 is all you really need.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
okay. Well,
you just factor in the juice. You don't make your bet. It all works out.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, my gosh.
That doesn't even make sense.
All right. Well, what we're going to do, let me run through what's on the show. Reminder, we're streaming today's show worldwide on the radio.com app. If you don't have the radio.com app, you're missing out. Make sure you download it. You can always listen to us no matter where you're at. All great stations from around the country there. Download it and listen to us live anywhere in the world. Also, as usual, we're live, maybe to the chagrin of Kelly today. We're live on video. You can come right in the studio with us. The Tres Lobos. Are we three bad wolves?
Tres Lobos.
You'll huff and you'll puff.
I thought you were going Three Amigos for a second there.
I used that one last week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to switch it up a little bit.
All right,
so we YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, via Periscope, and on Twitch. As always, great listener, viewer chat happening there. So join Raider Nation from around the world on our video simulcast. In addition, make sure to read the website that started this all, silverandblacktoday.com. Lots of transactional news this week. It's all on the All Raiders website, the only one based here in Las Vegas, silverandblacktoday.com. Okay, let's set topics on the table now for today's show, just so you know what's coming ahead. The Raiders spending free agency in spending spree. Somebody hit me in the head. All right. Bam. Thank you. Continues slew of signings this week. We'll get into some of them in depth later on in the show. But this week, Your future Las Vegas NFL team signed a beast of a linebacker and former Bengal Vontaze Burfict. We're going to talk about him in the next segment. Oh, I said segment, I owe $1. Re-signed long snapper Trent Sieg. They also signed former Lions slot cornerback Nevin Lawson, Chiefs offensive lineman Jordan Devey, which will add some depth to that line and also versatility because he can play center. Signed quarterback. This is the one I know everyone was really excited about. Journeyman Mike Glennon is now the backup to Derek Carr, at least compete for it. And they also signed Giants safety Curtis Riley on Friday. Everyone got all that. Most Raider fans, because they are rabid, they already know this, and we're tracking it all week, but we're going to talk about it. The Raiders continue to stock players ahead of next month's amateur draft, so we'll see what's going on there. Guest today in our first hour, X's and O's guy, senior NFL analyst for silverandblacktoday.com, Chris Reed will be with us to break down the player that Vontaze Burfict is today and what that means for the Raiders and Paul Gunther's defense and more. Chris will talk with us about the Raiders' other signees as well. In the second hour, we'll talk Raiders, where they stand as far as the odds go. That's right. As their free agent activity continued, we'll talk to Wynn Las Vegas Race and Sports Director Doug Castaneda. He'll give us an overview and talk with him about the growing world of legal sports wagering here in the United States. But we'll get the updated odds on the Raiders, guys. See if they've changed for the better. Better for the better. Better for the better. Better for the better or better for the... Yeah. Anyway. Because the Raiders have been so busy, the Silver and Black Today crew has a ton to talk about. We'll start with the biggest signing, as I said, but we'll move our way down. We'll break down what the Raiders still might need to address in free agency, a pass rusher, and what it'll do to their draft board. So much to talk about. We will spend enough time to do that with you guys. We'll also give you an update on the progress and construction of the Raiders' new stadium here in Las Vegas. Those this week, they tell you the truth about what's going on here in Las Vegas versus some of the erroneous reports you are seeing about the Palace on Dean Martin Drive. I'm calling it the Palace on Dean Martin Drive.
Erroneous.
So stay around for that. And birthday boy, Kelly Kreiner, has his Kelly's Corner. We have no idea what he's going to talk about. He may mumble and not make much sense, but that's okay. It's the wild card part of the show, so we'll do that. Also, important part of every show is your opinion. Call. Be the fourth host, 702-889-5978. Give us your view just about anything Raiders related. Again, call us 702-889-5978. Be patient. We'll get to you as soon as we can. If the phone rings, don't worry. We'll pick it up. Our crack engineer, David Stepanian, is there. He will pick up the phone and get you on there. There you have it, Raider Nation. You're up to date. We've set topics on the table. Now it's your turn, 702-889-5978. Okay, guys. So busy week, and we're going to get all into that here shortly. But I'm shocked at Raider fans still really obsessed with the Burfict signing. Like, it happened. It seemed like most people were excited about it, but now I'm also seeing a lot of people who just didn't like the move.
Well, I guess there's a lot of red flags surrounding the guy, right? Is that the concern?
that could be an understatement.
Is that putting it lightly?
Yeah.
I know he's best known for his hits on defenseless receivers.
One of which we just signed to a big contract after trading for.
And apparently no hard feelings there, right?
Hey, they're teammates now, man. They're good to go.
We'll see how that plays out. Also, how many unsportsmanlike conduct penalties he's had. And a few other degenerate plays. Jack Tatum would just call that another day at the office.
So what you're saying is he's the perfect Raider, right? I mean, so that's what we're going to talk about, though, and I know we're going to talk to Chris Reed, our senior NFL analyst, next about it. But here's my question: is and we talked about it a little bit before he got signed. Jay Burrows, who writes for our website now and then, said, was Raider Nation getting soft because they didn't want this guy? And then, of course, you had the Antonio Brown stuff this week, and could they patch it, which I think is ridiculous. When you're a competitor, you want to kill each other, you want to rip each other's throat out. When you get on the same team, you put that aside. Doesn't mean you might go have a beer with the guy,
right?
But you put it aside because you're on the same team and you're about to join.
Exactly.
But I we'll see how it goes. Kelly, any thoughts over there?
Well, no, I mean, the second they were mentioning Burfict, you knew that was going to pop up because it was such a big deal last year. I mean, he has been in the past a great linebacker. You're not exactly sure what he has left, but I mean, he's still better at the position than anybody else the Raiders have right now. So, yeah. I mean, it is an upgrade But like you said, there are a lot of penalties. There are a lot. I mean, a lot of attitude issues or whatever. But if you win, no one cares.
That's right. Well, he was suspended to start of each of the last 3 seasons, right? 3 games, and then he was four games, the first 4 games of last season.
See, he's not suspended yet this year, so he's starting off better.
He's already on the right foot. And multiple concussions. I know that's a concern. But the guy hits like a Mack truck. I mean, he just brings it. And I think I understand all of the new rules of player safety, and I agree with that 100%. But, we can still bring the mentality. And I think that's why Gruden signed off on it. This guy just brings that mentality. I'm hearing the comparisons to Bill Romanowski. He's got that, edge, maybe a little dirtiness, and that's old school Raiders. I know we like that. He was signed less than 24 hours after he was released. So
Yeah,
they wanted this guy.
They did, and from every indication, we knew Paul Gunther was trying to get him even last year. At least that's what we've heard. All right, so we're going to take our first break. On the other side of this break, folks, we're going to be joined by Chris Reed, senior NFL analyst for silverandblacktoday.com. He's going to break down the Burfict signing. Was it the Burfict fit, or could there be signs that he's on the downslide? We will certainly find out here as we go along. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
If you need to
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
All right, welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us. And we are talking Raiders football, and specifically now we're going to be talking about starting with Vontaze Burfict. Okay, big signing for the Raiders at linebacker, huge need for them after last year, and a guy who's used to Paul Guenther's system because he played for him in Cincinnati. And to talk about this, we go down to Arizona and we bring in our own Chris Reed, silverandblacktoday.com's senior NFL analyst. Chris, how you doing on this Sunday, man?
Good. Summer's almost here.
Yes, man. I know. Well, and for those of us who live in the desert, you know what that means, but I'm ready for it, man. We had I don't know about you down there, we had a late and cold winter, as you saw, the snow and all that jazz. But now it's getting warm. It's going to be 73 degrees today. I love it, man. I just wish it could last like a couple months. All right, let's get to the subject at hand. Vontaze Burfict. You did a great piece up on silverandblacktoday.com. You're very popular, the Breakdown series. And despite his suspensions and some of the off-the-field stuff, he has been a really steady linebacker. Talk about, in your view, number one, even with what happened last year with some of his injuries and his suspensions, what does he bring to this team that they really, really needed?
A guy that can step in and start, that's familiar with the system and has performed well in the past. The real question with him, you know, like you said, is he going to be on the field? Because he's only played in 17 of the last 32 games for his teams, you know. And his suspensions, you almost think they're going to get rid of a coin toss, bring the refs out, and just throw a flag before the start of the game now that he's signed with the Raiders.
Well, and that, Chris, I mean, that clearly, and I don't disagree with anybody who thinks that is not something that you want to be concerned about because he's had a history of it, right? At the same time, you have a defense, right, that's in sorely needs kind of, I think, a little bit of an edge. When you look back at the film and you look at all of the different penalties and things he's had, how many of them were, quote unquote, more dirty versus just being a really nasty football player?
I mean, if you think back to the Raiders in the 70s, the guy, you wouldn't even hear about him getting, you know, flagged and penalized. It's just the player safety stuff coming into it. He's a guy that plays the game hard, and sometimes you're going to get those like unnecessary penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Chris, Chaz here. So, you know, you always hear Mike Mayock talking about the fit. That's their new thing. And we know he played under Guenther's system. But as a locker room guy, how do you think he fits?
He's a guy that's going to hold people accountable for sure. He doesn't seem like he's somebody that's going to, you know, back away. I'd say he's going to help the young guys, and then, you know, he'll either fit in or he'll get shipped out. He's on a 1-year prove-it deal, but I don't think he'll be an issue in the locker room at all. I've never heard of him having issues with his teammates before.
Yeah, with that price, we couldn't turn down that deal. How about his against the rush, against the pass? Something better there? Which one?
What was that?
Is he better against the rush? Is he better against the pass?
He could. I've seen film of him doing, you know, pretty well on both, especially with Guenther's system, asking him to kind of drop into his zone and then react from there. He showed that he had good, you know, reaction time, good athleticism, getting to the ball. In the run game, he was able to stand up blockers, shed them, get the ball carrier on the ground. Considering what the Raiders have had at linebacker in recent years, you'd have to say it's an upgrade. Doesn't mean he's going to be a Pro Bowler. Not every, you know, signing is an All-Pro. You know, he's in that kind of solid starter kind of range.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I noticed is the way he hits. I mean, he flat out hits the guy. I mean, these guys are defensive players are taught from a young age just go after the ball and hit him, and he does it. He does it with violence. Yeah,
and Chris, I know when you look at what he does, you talked about his athletic ability, and that has never been in question. But really, his field awareness. Talk about how that helps him really in space and in that AA alignment you talk about in your piece in Guenther's system. How that makes such a big difference for a guy like him.
Well, the game I highlighted was against Tyrod Taylor. Everybody knows he's such a mobile guy, and his ability to drop, read the route combinations, and then come off the route combinations and rally to the ball when the quarterback was coming out of the pocket. That really stood out to me, just the way he could process so much information so quick, because linebacker position, you need like a microprocessor in your head. I don't know how those guys sometimes, with all the RPOs and play actions, how they don't just trip over their own feet sometimes. Yeah, he did a really good job in that.
Now, if you look at his numbers, and I'm looking up on PFF, and last year, obviously, injury and suspension and whatnot was statistically sort of his anomaly year. But you look at since 16, where he kind of peaked from a PFF grade perspective, and I know that's only one aspect, then it was down 2 years consecutively. Is there anything you've seen in the tape that makes you concerned with decline in ability, or do you feel like it's pretty much on par the where it's been the last few years?
Well, he's only 28, so I wouldn't get too worried about the age thing. And he really talked about how he felt like he lost his soul last year, not being with Gunther. So you can kind of look at it however you choose to. You can say that's him on the decline, or you can say, he lost the coach in a system that he was really comfortable with, and now he'll get it back. It's something that we're going to have to see play out over the course of the season.
We see a lot of, in basketball, I see a lot of guys, I guess Dwayne Wade would be a perfect example because his nickname was Crash, but, he goes to the glass, he goes hard, and later in their career, it kind of turned into a jump shooter and a little more finesse. Is that something that we could see here? Do we see that a lot in the NFL, where players kind of adjust their game as they get older?
You could say that with maybe a wide receiver or something, where they're going to start relying more on technique. But I don't think Burfict knows how to play the game any different than just to be a 200-mile-an-hour trainer.
He's only got one gear.
Well, that makes, to me, that's what makes him who he is, and why he made so much sense for the Raiders, and I think a good signing. I mean, that's my view.
Hey, Chris, it's Kelly here. I've got a question. If Gunther isn't the defensive coordinator for the Raiders, is this a signing that the Raiders are going to go out and make, or is this one that Gunther was really pushing for because it is his guy? He has had him before.
Well, Burfict talked about the minute he got cut, he called his mom, and then he called Gunther. So I'm sure Gunther was kind of the go-between with Gruden. But Gruden also had Bill Romanowski, who I would say you could put as in even more of a wild card than Burfict. So I don't think, Gruden would necessarily shy away from it, but he probably wouldn't have had the ease getting signed that he did without Gunther being there.
Yeah, there's no question. And the fit, knowing that defense, last year, Chris, at this time, we were talking about the Raiders signing some free agents that we talked about from the perspective of, hey, this is a guy who's going to come in and lead the young players and show them the ropes. With Burfict, you have a guy who's played in that system his entire career, but still has the athletic ability to make an even bigger difference. I think, to me, anybody who looks at the signing and thinks, well, he's, maybe he's going to make it, maybe he's not. I've seen people think, well, geez, will he make the 50? He's going to make the 53-man roster. I have no question about that, unless something happens from an injury perspective. But to me, that's the thing. You talked about it. 28 years old, Chris, lot left in the tank.
Yeah, and I mean, the best way to show young guys how to play in a system, you have to be able to play in the system. They're not going to listen to a player just sitting on the sideline going, you need to do it like that. You got to be out there, and you've got to show them, what you're talking about. And he can certainly start, and he can certainly play. So.
Now, of the other signings, let's get your thoughts a little bit. We look at Nevin Lawson, the cornerback they signed from the Lions, Chris, a slot cornerback. How does he look? There's been mixed reaction to some of it. I think a good, solid signing for him. What have you seen so far from him?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to point out that he hasn't had any interceptions in his 5 years, but he has put up, 205 tackles. He's got a sack. From a technique standpoint, I think that's what he has to clean up. I kind of expected to see like a DJ Hayden, a guy that could stay in phase but wasn't looking for the ball. He did get his head around. He did get his hands on passes, but you can see, especially his press technique, where there's a lot he can clean up. But of all the signing, I'd say he's the guy that could kind of push for a starting role more than, the rest, except maybe Joyner. They're probably looking at him like a Marcus Gilchrist, to play that nickel corner.
Yeah, and then one of the other interesting signings to me, and I know some Raider fans don't like it because he's from the Chiefs, but Jordan Devey, I like this kid. Tried to play through a pectoral tear last year before he got IR'd, but not only does he play at tackle, but he can also play at center. So you get a little bit of not only depth but versatility there.
Yeah, that's the kind of Feliciano, signing there, where you need that guy that, with the limited number of people you have active on game day, that can play anywhere along the line. And that whole, playing all 5 positions, that's a really rare talent.
Absolutely. All right. Chris Reed, senior NFL analyst with silverandblacktoday.com. Chris, man, thanks, man. Have a great week.
Thanks, Chris.
Hey, you two guys.
All right. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. Don't go anywhere.
CBS Sports Radio. Help us talk the silver and black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Scott Gulbransen on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And we're going to continue our conversation that we started with Chris on free agents. And if you look at what the Raiders have done in free agency, I mean, clearly they have been very active. They have, I think, turned a lot of heads. They've been sort of, if you look at a lot of the lists out there, and of course the media at this time of the year, a lot of stuff, you don't have games to report on, you don't have anything on the field happening, so you have to do all the player personnel stuff. Guys, the Raiders are viewed as kind of being one of the teams that was most active, but not just most active, but successful in addressing their needs. And we talked about Burfict, we talked about Lawson, we talked about Devy, and even Mike Glennon, the quarterback, and now Curtis Riley, another safety. When you guys look at who they've signed thus far, what big need do you think still out there that they want to at least bring some bodies in?
Well, for me, it's obvious, pass rusher and running back, because we have no idea what we have at either position really right. Well, we know we don't have anything at pass rusher, but I mean, running back, we're not even sure what we have. Pass rush is something that the draft is full of. Running back, there are a ton of running backs, but you are not in a hurry to run up and draft any of them. So I assumed free agency was where the Raiders were going to try to address this, but they've really made no moves towards anybody. There's not any rumors about people coming in. There's not any speculation. So they've kind of just left it dry.
Yeah. Well, they're probably going to patch a lot of that together with the draft. You're going to get best available there. The one signing that we haven't talked about, and this guy, Dwayne Harris, last year, he made two of the smartest plays on special teams I've ever seen. I was watching the games when he did it, and I'm thinking, no, what are you doing? The game against the Chiefs where he kicked the ball, and he stepped out of bounds and grabbed the ball on the 1 yard line.
Everybody's doing that now, though. That's like the new hotness. It's
I
like
didn't know it's the fad.
I didn't know that was the rule. I thought he just made a boneheaded play. Now we got the ball at the 1. No, he made the smartest play. We got the ball at the 40. And then that next game against the Broncos where they tried to down the punt and they touched it, but they didn't secure it, he picks it up and goes 99 yards for a touchdown. I didn't know that if he loses it, since they had already touched it, it would be a dead ball. They can't do anything with it. Two plays like that, amazing, smart plays. Here's a guy under the radar. Same thing, 1 year contract. We signed him. He lent a huge hand and went in the Browns game too. I remember towards the end of the game, he secured a punt.
Well, nothing gets you to the Super Bowl like great kick returns.
Well,
if you can sign a guy that made 2 plays last year, you've got to do it.
Those are genius plays. Let me tell you something.
I'm
The
just
reason
giving
that
you
we
crap,
got-
but here's the deal. So we look at that from the perspective of, okay, the needs they have. They still have need at linebacker, just on the defensive side. You mentioned running back, which absolutely. Defensive end, okay, so the edge rusher is still a big deal. Let's look. I'm gonna throw some names at you, people still available, and get your reaction on whether they would be a fit. Zach Brown, a linebacker.
He'd be a fit, but I'm not too excited. That's like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, and then you have Sue is out there, and Ndamukong Suh, which not a fit for the Raiders, I don't believe at all. Not only because of the need, but Eric Berry's out there as well at safety. No one. He thought it looked like he was going to sign in Dallas. That has not happened. Do you take a shot at him, knowing his injuries? I mean, not counting the cancer, and God bless him for overcoming that. As a cancer survivor myself, I understand it. But the Achilles is a tough thing to come back from, especially playing that position. What do you guys think about Eric Berry and giving him a shot?
I like Eric Berry. We were talking about free agents, people that we were going to bring in. I like high character players. I like guys that come in, they can change the culture. Obviously he's going to be a 1 year kind of thing, 2 years. He's not 31 till the end of the season. He started the Eric Berry Foundation, just all these positive things in the community. Those are the kind of players, now that we've got a couple, talking about Burfict being questionable, why don't we go out and get a couple of high character players?
Kelly, what do you think of Berry?
The fact that he left Dallas without a contract scares me. Because
From a cost perspective?
well, not only a cost, but maybe also an injury perspective. Because if there's a team that needs a safety, like I mean, there's I don't think there's a team that needs a safety worse than Dallas right now. So
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he got out of there gives me a little bit of dread that maybe, like I said, he might. I don't think it's going to be a money issue as much as an injury issue.
Now, what about Adrian Claiborne from the Patriots, defensive end? You need rush, you need edge. I know he's not a huge sack guy, but do you take a chance?
I'm not a big believer in taking somebody the Patriots let walk away, which is why
That's a good point.
Which is why the Trent Brown signing is one thing. But I mean, they've shown they can kind of plug in offensive linemen. But I mean, they've basically just let their whole defensive line walk. You know, there's a reason they ended up getting him cheap because he did nothing in Tampa Bay.
Well, and
he had a good week.
Yeah, and the guy too, Ezekiel Ansah. Thank you, pronunciation. From the Lions. Here's a guy who got a massive contract, never lived up to it. So he's sort of going to be in a prove it kind of deal, I think, situation, unless he's really going to hold on. Now, again, there hasn't been much interest in him, which is a big concern. Any thoughts on him?
I'm hearing the injury issue with him is scaring off a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's a shoulder.
Yeah.
And when you've got a defensive lineman that's their arms, shoulders, everything. And that was his thing. He was, the speed rusher, had some good moves. He had good speed to power. But I mean, if there's a shoulder issue with him, I mean, that cuts down big time. Nobody's going to sink it. Because I mean, he's the top rusher left. Normally people are just, clamoring for a guy like that. And he's probably going to have to take the 1 year prove it deal, which he's obviously not willing to do right now.
Yep. I got a name Raider fans might remember, Benson Moyoa. He was an undrafted free agent. I played with the Raiders at 14 and 15, and then the Cowboys offered him a 3-year, $8 million. The Raiders, they did not match that contract. So then the Cowboys let him go. He played for the Cardinals, and he had a really consistent year last year. They're switching. I think the Cardinals are switching to the 3-4 defense, and he's primarily played the 4-3 his whole career. So that could be somebody we look at, bring back in.
Well, and what about you talk about Cardinals? What about Trey Boston?
That's kind of surprising that he's still out there.
Yeah.
He's not setting the world on fire out there, but like I said, he's super consistent. And that's kind of what you want in a safety. It looks nice. Oh, he's got 5-6 interceptions but safety's the name of the position. It's like you want him to not give up big plays. You want to keep things in front of you. You want you're the last line of defense, and he's very good and very consistent at that.
Yeah, and last year I think he was a free agent last year. He signs with the Cardinals. It was not a great market. It wasn't a very competitive market, so he signed at a pretty low deal. Now he's back on the market. It's a better market, but he doesn't seem to be garnering that much interest. He's only 27 years old. And so I'm curious as to why teams are staying clear. Again, the Cowboys. They have a glaring need at safety. It's so big you can see it. It's bigger than their stadium. And nobody seems to want Trey Boston, which I don't understand. I watched the guy. I like him a lot. I think his talent level and what he could bring. And the Raiders have already proven they want to bring guys in to compete. And so the longer he sits out there, I think the more it benefits the team on a deal. Just not sure what the deal is.
Yeah, he's gonna be a guy that he's gonna wind up getting a contract. He's gonna get underpaid. It's gonna be a 1-year deal. And at the by week 10, we're like, how did this guy go? How did this team get such a good deal on this guy?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's like last year, no one was paying safeties, and all the talk was about how, the safety's a position nobody wants to pay for and all that stuff. And then the Redskins go nuts and just throw a Brinks truck at
They seem to do that a lot with everything. They do.
Yeah, I mean, they're not known for spending money wisely in free agency.
Yeah.
But that contract single-handedly just skewed the whole safety market.
Wow.
Well, and one of the sightings that I thought that the Raiders made this week, and it was Friday, it was the last one, was Curtis Riley. I like Riley. You can watch Giant fans talk about how poor he was. And his one big downside is his tackling ability. Coverage is fine. He had, 4 picks last year. I like him as a player. Obviously, the tackling's got to get better.
Well, he was third in the team in tackles.
Yes, but he would have been first if he would have. He made them all
by a long shot.
But no, I know. Sometimes guys get a bad rap for a certain part of their game because it is the one part of their game that's glaringly maybe deficient.
Tackling people's kind of important.
In the game of football, it's a little important. It's not baseball. So anyway, but good discussion, guys, and we will continue some more of this later. We're going to step aside, and when we come back on the other side of the break, Doug Castaneda, director of the race and sports book at the Wynn Las Vegas, will join us. We're going to see if all these free agent moves by the Raiders have changed how Vegas odds look at this team going into next year. You're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
That would be an understatement. They have spiraled all the way down to a pretty low, at least for the last few seasons, 25-1 clip. So,
wow.
Like you stated, 100-1 was what we first hung a week before Super Bowl, roughly, this past Super Bowl. So we've had it up for quite some time. It's gradually gone down, and, this time of the year, it's all conjecture, perception, and then ultimately signings. And that's what's happened lately. It's really gone down to a low amount. If you're looking for value on the Raiders, you just missed it by a month.
What about other teams with the free agency? Clearly, with the Raiders moving down in direction at 25-1 on your board, who else are you seeing that's made a big change that you've noticed and has changed the odds there?
I would have to say the Browns. Cleveland Browns have stood out, and more so than the Raiders movement, this was justified by action. So from the get-go, we received money on Cleveland immediately, and that was before the Beckham acquisition. So when they opened 35-1 around the same time the Raiders opened 100-1, they were getting bet on hand over fist, and I think it's because of the Baker Mayfield success. It was a successful season in terms of Browns fans, and people just thought 35-1, 30-1 was too good to pass up. So they did make early wagers on Cleveland and put us in a hole because, future wagering had just started for us. It's barely in its early inception in terms of the future book that we take all in all throughout the offseason. So we're definitely going to develop a bigger handle as we go, but early on it seemed to just be all confined on Cleveland, and right now we stand at 8-1. So around the time we opened it up at 35-1, it kind of gradually went down to 20-1, and that's where it stood pat. But after the acquisition of Beckham and a few other things of note, that things are positive in Cleveland right now. The most positive they've ever been, I think, since the Cavs won the NBA Finals a couple seasons ago. So that's dropped down to 10-1, and right now we stand at 8-1. So to have the Browns at 8-1, and we're not even
amazing.
It's not even draft day yet. Is something you don't really say a lot as a bookmaker.
Amazing. Again, we're talking to Doug Castaneda, director of the Race and Sportsbook over at the Wynn Las Vegas.
Hey, Doug, it's Kelly Croner here. Well, one thing, the last time the Browns were favored to win their division, they wound up 4-12. So this could be very good for you guys in the sportsbook. There's always been a nice large group of Raider fans out here. Have you noticed with the Raiders announcing coming to Las Vegas? Obviously, when they're here in 2020, you're going to see more future wagers on them then. But have you noticed it kind of starting to uptick on just like the casual person putting in, a Raiders Super Bowl future just because the Raiders are going to be a Las Vegas team?
Oh, definitely. We're seeing small play, not substantial play. No matter what the price is, type of play, and that's usually accustomed to good fans. Usually those bets aren't taken as seriously, so we don't really move the money off those type of plays, but we do notice that there's an allegiance, there's a following, and there's people that are backing their hearts with some actual future wagers on the Raiders. So you could see it in town. The town's starting to transition into a football town. We weren't really a football town in the past. We were as fans. We would flock to our local bars and follow our hometown teams because a lot of people have moved over to Las Vegas from wherever their hometowns are spread out across the country. So there was an allegiance to their hometown fans until now. We're starting to see what the Golden Knights have done. That hometown pride is starting to be shown on the NFL ledger. So we're starting to see billboards. We're starting to see development. There's a development going on in Henderson that's attached to the Raiders down at Town Square, a really popular centralized location for shopping and dining. Has a commitment to excellence. Headquarters with a pro shop and Lombardi trophies on display. So you're starting to see things that an NFL town have on display, and that kind of legitimizes the transition for people who, like myself, I'm a true Raider fan. I grew up in Burbank. That's in L.A. So during the 80s when they moved into the Coliseum, I became a Raider fan for life. So a lot of people here, they bring their allegiance to with them from wherever they came from, and you're starting to see people who did that with hockey become Golden Knights fans.
Oh, yeah.
You're seeing that with with football, and the Raiders as the same.
Again, we're talking to Doug Castaneda, the director of the Race and Sportsbook over at the Wynn, my favorite place in all of Las Vegas. If you haven't been there, it's gorgeous. With about the minute we have left with you today, Doug, tell people what you have going on this weekend. I mean, I know we have one more day, and then, of course, the rest of the tournament. And then how they find you at the Sportsbook, and what is it about the Wynn Race and Sportsbook that makes it so special?
Well, today we got some pretty big games. There's some marquee schools going on. It's the kind of the last stanza of the 4-day craziness that we have going on here. We had a really fun weekend. We had the Encore Theater opened up for theater-style viewing parties with the first, second round activity. We had, of course, our Wynn Sportsbook, just fabulous setup. The layout is incredible.
Amazing.
Luxurious seating. And you also have the Encore Sportsbook, too, adjacent to our hub here at the Wynn Tower. So really good setup. We had 3 locations you could wager on. And going towards today's schedule, we got some big schools, like I mentioned. Duke and North Carolina, of course, come to mind when you think of college basketball, reigning programs, at least since I've been born.
All right. Well, Doug, hey, listen, man, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to have you on again. As a Raider fan, too, we'll get your perspective on those things as they go along, too. But again, Doug Castaneda, check out the Wynn Race and Sportsbook this weekend for the NCAA tournament. Thanks, Doug. We'll talk to you again soon, buddy.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too. All right, we're going to take a break, pay some bills, and when we come back on the other side, we'll be joined by Steve Berman from the Athletic Bay Area. He'll talk a little bit about what coverage might be like for the Raiders in the Bay Area after they move to Las Vegas. You're listening to Silver and Black today, here only on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
Do one thing.
national champion. Call in and make your opinion known on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in a beautiful, sunny, 70-degree Las Vegas before our faces start melting off later in the summer. But we're glad to have the weather. We're glad to have you with us both here on the radio and on our live video feed on all the different channels where you'll find us. So thank you for doing that. We're going to shift gears now. We're going to go back to the Bay Area. Yes, the Raiders are coming to Las Vegas. Yes, it will be their future home, but they still have one more year in Oakland. They also have a rich and important history in the Bay Area, which will never, ever go away. The original Raider fans are in the Bay Area, and that runs deep for a lot of folks, and so it will always be part of the Raiders and of the team moving forward. We now bring with us Steve Berman. He is a contributor at The Athletic Bay Area, also known as the Bay Area Sports Guy. He founded the most influential and successful independent news site up there as well. So as someone who's doing that here in Las Vegas, Steve, it's good to talk to you, man, and what a great job you did. I'm glad to see how well you're doing.
Yeah, it's thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's amazing with the Raiders. You know, it's the weirdest situation, I think, in professional sports where in essence, 3 years before you leave, you're saying, hey, we're leaving. We're moving to a different city, but we're going to play here for a while. I always talk about it as, you're telling your girlfriend or wife, hey, we're splitting up, but I'm going to sleep on the couch for a couple of years. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's been a crazy time. But I was really struck by, and it's a question I had in my back of my mind as someone who's in the media, is when the Raiders leave to come to Las Vegas after this season permanently, will the Bay Area media outlets follow it? You wrote a piece about that, and talk about what you found out really off the top, kind of in general, what the answer to that is.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I wanted to see because, there's been a lot of dismissiveness toward the Raiders, especially in recent weeks, because they tried to play anywhere but Oakland. So they really wanted to play at AT&T Park, which I guess now is named Oracle Park, which is weird, where the Giants play. And they were rebuffed on that one. The 49ers didn't want them in San Francisco. I don't even really know if the city of San Francisco is really that keen on adding that extra traffic. And so they had to kind of go tail between the legs back to the Coliseum. But then when they started, acquiring players like Antonio Brown and Trent Brown and LaMarcus Joyner, all of a sudden, people are starting to talk about the Raiders again. So I was wondering, just like nothing had happened. So I was just wondering if maybe the media was going to keep going after they left Oakland. And I tried asking pretty much everybody I could, and I didn't get a lot of concrete answers. Las Vegas is actually the place where there's a hub for The Athletic, who I write for, and so we're going to, The Athletic's still going to cover the Raiders when they move to Vegas. Nothing really will change on that one. But the San Francisco Chronicle, I don't think, is going to follow the Raiders. And Bay Area News Group, which the San Jose Mercury News and a bunch of affiliated papers, I don't know if they're going to go either. I wasn't given a definitive answer, but I don't think so. And I don't really think NBC Sports Bay Area is going to do much. I think what they'll do is probably just cover some of the bigger stories, but I don't think they're going to have a beat writer installed in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where clearly, and you in your story talk about San Diego and the Chargers, a team I grew up watching, and how they've kind of handled it. Now, that's a one-team town now because, and obviously a lot smaller because they have the Padres, and that's pretty much it. With the Bay Area, you have so many. You have NBA, you have Major League, you have two Major League Baseball teams, you have an NFL team in the 49ers. And so there a lot different atmosphere and a much bigger media market. But at the end of the day, Steve, I mean, it's what the readers want, right? It's what if you're a newspaper, you want subscriptions. If you're an online outlet, you want people to click through and see and read your stories. And so, but the thing is, I know there's a lot of Raider fans, because we hear from both sides, a lot of Raider fans who are going to write off their team, and they're done because they're leaving Oakland. And then there's, of course, the rest of the folks, which I think is probably the vast majority, who will follow them, even some of them begrudgingly, as they go to Las Vegas, because it's still their team and they grew up in the Bay Area. Even when the team was in L.A., they were fans. So from that perspective, it's really going to be business that dictates a lot of it for some of those publications, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if there is actually interest, the thing about newspapers is they want subscriptions more than clicks. So they're not sure if it's going to lead to subscriptions going on. However, I think if enough people care about it, there'll still be coverage. The San Diego situation is different for a lot of reasons. It's because the Chargers were the number one team in San Diego, and they were only moving about an hour and a half, 2 hours north.
Right.
Whereas the Raiders are definitely not the number one team in terms of interest in the Bay Area. They kind of squandered a lot of that when they moved to Los Angeles in the 80s and came back in 1995, and have sort of bumbled their way through their second Oakland existence since, with a lot of bad teams and a bad decision to stick what they call Mount Davis on Oakland Coliseum. And so there's still the 49ers here. I mean, the 49ers grew in popularity after the Raiders left. And then you also have the Warriors and the Giants and the A's. So it's in the Sharks. So it's a totally different situation. However, the Raiders fans are a unique group in that because of their sort of nomadic existence, there is a wide set of them that will follow them really wherever. And I don't think that, it's not really a surprise that they're moving. I mean, they've been talking about moving to Vegas or San Antonio or all these other spots for the last several years.
Well, again, we're talking to Steve Berman from The Athletic in the Bay Area, also Bay Area sports guy. Steve, we get a lot of listeners and folks, and we have a lot of comments right now on our Facebook and YouTube feeds. And we heard this going even last year. When people complain about quote-unquote negative coverage, to be fair, I dismiss that because, fans want, there's a lot of fans today with the way journalism has changed. A lot of fans want almost fan-oriented media where everything's rah-rah, and that's fine. There's outlets to do that. Some of them are very, very good, and I don't have a problem with it. But when it comes to straight journalism, you're supposed to strive for objectivity. A lot of the fans that we hear, and it's hard for us to know because we're in Las Vegas, they feel like as soon as the move was approved that the coverage overall, and I'm not talking about columnists, but the coverage overall just got negative. I equate that to the fact that the team's been bad. Have you noticed any of that as a guy who watches the media? Have you noticed a shift in tone?
I would say a little bit. I don't know if it's unfair in terms of the discussion of the product on the field, because other than the 2017 season, I mean, the team has been just wretched. So,
right.
And then, and people had a lot higher hopes for the team when John Gruden came, and everyone sort of was confused with the Khalil Mack trade and then the Cooper trade afterwards. I do think that I see a lot of Raiders fans who get upset, and it's sort of the whole idea of haters, and anything that's negative, they get upset, and that's the way a lot of fans are right now, and probably always have been. There's just more outlets and more ways for fans to voice their opinion. But I have noticed ever since it was made official a couple years back that the Raiders are going to move to Las Vegas, that I think the beat writers have kept completely objective from what I noticed. Guys like Dick Taper and Scott Bair and Matt Kawahara and everyone who covers Jerry McDonald. But I do think that the overall, the talk shows around here have gone from minimal Raiders coverage to just about zero Raiders coverage. And a lot of that, I think, is also in part because Mark Davis made the decision to replace Greg Papa with Brent Musburger, which not only seemed like just sort of a nod to Vegas in general, but also, I mean, objectively speaking, Greg Papa is a much better announcer on the radio doing play-by-play football than Brent Musburger is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that what we've seen, too, of course, Michael Gelkin from the paper here, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, you talk about a guy who's been through a journey, covers the Chargers, they move, gets the Raider job and has to live in the Bay Area for a little while, which isn't a bad deal, and then covering for the Las Vegas paper. So for him, he's that guy. What we've noticed too, and a lot of the folks that are in the media, when you talk to them here in Las Vegas, now I'm speaking because those of us in Las Vegas, we don't have anything. We always talk about how much we love the Oakland fans and that we feel for them and understand. I have family and friends in San Diego who lost their team, so I understand it from their perspective too, even though it's different circumstances. But there's been almost a little bit of a feeling here too, even amongst the media, that the Bay Area media is a little bit of arm's length distance with the Las Vegas media, and even the team has treated Las Vegas media very at arm's length as not to offend the Bay Area media. Isn't that unusual? And have you seen or heard about any of that?
I really haven't. I mean, I'm not saying that hasn't existed. I'm just not really embedded with the sort of what goes on in the media rooms and in the press boxes at the Coliseum to know. And I haven't heard much from anyone there. I mean, I know one of the people I spoke with for this article, one of the editors I spoke with said that he thought it was a really smart idea to have Michael Gehlken there embedded with the team for a couple of years, and obviously the Raiders are going there. And I don't sense a lot of animosity from the fans toward Las Vegas as a city or a market. I think that there's been a lot of people who've kind of questioned the amount of public money that went to the stadium, because in California, that's pretty much a non-starter at this point. And I think I've seen people saying that they kind of feel for the citizens of Vegas that so much money is going toward this project for Mark Davis. But I think the people were like I said earlier, people were expecting the Raiders to move somewhere for so long. And I think a lot of the fans are probably happy that it's Vegas and not San Antonio or somewhere farther away. Media-wise, though, it might just be a situation where it's everyone in the Bay Area kind of knows each other in the media. It's a group that, for the most part, is pretty friendly and close to each other. And maybe just, who's this other person here? I don't think there's any jealousy or anything like that I've heard, but I could see where it could be sort of, provincial. It's definitely a very provincial market. Bay Area people, in terms of fans and media, really only trust the Bay Area people to tell them about sports. It's true with talk radio. It's true with columnists. It's true across the board.
Well, no, and Steve, I think too that one of the things that I would say, and as a human being, I look at those guys up there and girls, and I say, hey, listen, if I'm in their shoes, it's tough because you don't know what happens next. Now, people like Vic and those guys that are long time, they're gonna cover something. There's no doubt. But when your world, you've been an NFL beat writer, and that's going to change. That creates uncertainty, and from a personal feeling, it's hard not to keep some personal skin in the game there. So I totally understand it and can feel for those folks up there because they're not sure what's next. And even if they are sure what's next, it's a change, and that's always difficult. So very great, though. I recommend everybody keep track of Steve and read his stuff there. Steve, thanks, man, for spending the time with us. I'm sure we'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Steve Berman from The Athletic up in the Bay Area.
Thanks, Steve.
We're going to step aside, and on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the stadium here in Las Vegas and what you've heard and what you haven't heard about the project. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140.
The Dodgers take on the Angels. The Freeway Series today at 4 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Again, thanks to Steve Berman from the Athletic Bay Area, not the Bay Area Athletic. Wow, I'll get it right. But Steve, giving us interesting insight on that, because it really is, I think, we hear just a ton, guys, from fans up in the Bay Area. And with all due respect to all of you guys that are in the Bay Area, I get what you're saying about the coverage not being what you want it to and that it's cut back. It's hard to get coverage. You know, to be frank, that's great for us because you're listening to us, so thank you. But at the same time, I think some of it is emotional. Some of it, you with all the different types of media, and I talked about like fan-oriented media, right? Which is fan-oriented media has its place, and there's some great, fantastic Raiders fan websites and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. But I think what that does is for some people, they suddenly want all Homer-type coverage. And we don't do that here, and some people get mad at us for it. Maybe we're homers for Las Vegas, but overall, I think that it's tough. When you're in a city, you follow the team, and so many Raider fans are going to be Raider fans if they played on Mars, and so they don't care that they're moving per se. They just want to follow their team, so they get really frustrated by it. But at the same time, I think you all have to remember your expectation is they're leaving that market. The media is a business, okay? It's information, yes, but it's a business. We're all in it to make money. Anybody who tells you you're not in it to make money, except Chaz, who said he won't take money to do it. No, just kidding.
No, don't need it.
But you know what I'm saying, guys? I mean, it's one of those things where I think you have to temper your expectations if you're in the Bay Area and respect the fact that they have to start looking past when the Raiders leave.
Well, I think, winning cures everything too. We saw all the Charger fans and how upset, and there's a lot of hardcore great Charger fans down there. You and I growing up there, I went to that Raider game every year, and those fans show up. And this year, Steve had a great point in his article about the viewership, how it was up in San Diego this year, obviously because they're winning. So when teams are winning, they're going to follow. And the Raiders, after this season, it looked a little bleak, and then now we've got, a ray of hope, and things are trending in the right direction. They're going to follow.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. Like, it's just a weird situation out there.
Yeah.
Because they're leaving, but they're still here for a couple years. So there's just that bitterness. I don't care if you're a fan, if you're in the media or anything, you're still a person. That's still going to be, you're going to feel that. That's going to creep into whatever you're doing. Wednesday night, I was at a little meet and greet thing for a March Madness party, and a couple guys from Oakland saw I had my Silver and Black Today thing on. They asked if it was a Raiders thing. I explained, it's a radio show, podcast, everything we do. They're like, yeah, we were Raiders fans. I'm like, so did leave in the Bay Area? He's like, yeah. He goes, we fully understand that in 2 years we'll be Raiders fans again. He goes, but right now we're not Raiders fans anymore.
But you know what? I mean, Chaz mentioned we grew up in San Diego, and I talk about it all the time here on the show that as a kid growing up as a Chargers fan, that was my team. As I got older, I lived in Kansas City for a while, which made it worse because I still hate the Chiefs. But I grew out of it. I knew they were going to leave, and for me, it wasn't so much about the Chargers as it was about San Diego. Now, Chaz grew up with me in San Diego, but Chaz was always you followed the Raiders. We're a Raiders fan. You were like the outlier, you and a couple other people. Yeah. So there was one of those situations where you just like. For me, I just let go. And I became a fan of the game. And now being in a business where we talk about the Raiders and a Raiders website and podcast and all that, I'm objective because I'm not a fan. If people don't follow a team, doesn't make them unwilling or unable to talk about that team. But I think for a lot of people, it is geographical. So if you really are that strong, and I could understand a fan saying, I'm done. They've left twice now. So I'm done. I get it. And I don't fault them for it because I did the same thing.
No, I think, the Raiders driving 2 hours to Los Angeles, not a problem for me and my friends, my group of Raider fans. think about, like you said, geographically, people in St. Louis, they lost 2 teams as well. They can't go all the way
the West
up,
Coast.
to the West Coast.
Yeah.
So moving to Las Vegas, you might hear some fans, like Kelly said, they're a little bit upset they're moving, but they're coming to Las Vegas, and everybody wants an excuse to go to Vegas, and you're going to follow your team. That's not very difficult to get to. And even when the Raiders moved to Los Angeles initially, there was a lot of Oakland fans on that Raider shuttle coming down every Sunday to watch the games. So geographically speaking, and then throw Las Vegas, fun trip, you're going to make a weekend out of it anyway. It's going to work out. You're not going to see that much fall off from the fan base.
You're going to, I mean, you talk about the travel. I think it's great for the Southern, like the L.A. Raider fans.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's such a quick drive out here for the weekend and everything. If you're in Oakland, it's not something that's easy to do. Like, you can plan ahead, flight and everything.
Quick flight.
But as far as, as far as you're not driving down like 8 or 9 hours, 'cause that's a boring drive to begin with.
Yep.
But I mean, like, it would be a little tougher for the Oakland fans. But I mean, for the Southern LA Raider fans, it's a great situation.
I mean, if they move to San Antonio, we're having a total different conversation. But right,
absolutely, and that's the thing. I think that even watching the chat on YouTube and Facebook right now, people are the same. And here's Angelo. Grew up in Kansas City. I was a Raider fan. I can't even imagine that. But although I can't, you Chaz, you can, because you were.
Yeah.
There's nobody that Charger fan. I mean, I grew up hating the Raiders.
Yeah.
I did. I mean, that's just you from when you're a child. Of course, that's your rival, and the Chargers were never any good. Let's face it, except for a few years. So it was like the Dodgers and Padres. You always hated the Dodgers because the Dodgers were always good,
right?
And your team wasn't.
Yeah.
When you're in a small market like that.
And I got it left and right growing up, Oh, you're one of those and so now it's so great being in Vegas and having a hometown team that's your team. I mean,
Well, and having Steve on was really interesting to me, and I think I'm going to have him on a podcast and do a longer segment because I'm really interested in how the media has changed. I mean, we see it every day. Social media has changed things, the way the media covers things. I mean, we don't get into politics ever on this show, but the way politics is covered is different. Sports is the same because of the democratization of information, i.e. the web. You can have a fan website and knock it out of the park, make money, do an amazing job like so many people do, but you're not getting objectivity there. You're getting much more of a fan perspective, and that's awesome. But what about if you're more discerning and you want balance, right? So then you have to look for sources to get that and how that's changed. But I think it changes people's expectations. Love to hear what you guys think. 702-889-5978. Chime in and tell me what you think about all of that and the media, not only in the Bay Area, but in general, and how they cover the team. And do you just want people talking positively about things and use words like we and like you're part of the team, or do you want to hear folks that are looking at things kind of more down the middle? It's and I think it might depend on the day. You might want to read some really positive stuff and be your fan, and then you might want to go to another source and read some of the great beat writers that they have up in the Bay Area and get that different perspective.
It's funny, all my travels, I'm driving around. I was in different cities, on a daily basis, and you'd listen to these Homer programs, and it's frustrating because you do want to hear other perspectives. You want to get both sides of the story, but then when it comes to the Raiders, I do just want to be a homer. I only want to hear great news, great things about the Raiders. There's no negativity. We win the Super Bowl every year, and I'm happy.
Well, luckily on the radio, you're not a fanboy.
And the problem with it is when you said you're looking for some objectivity, it's just one or the other. You're either all in on the Raiders, you're all against. I mean, it's just just the way it is.
It's a love-hate
in
thing.
Media markets. There's so few people that are down the middle to get both sides. It's either one or left, and that's not just sports, that's politics. I mean, that's everything now.
Oh, yeah.
You divide and conquer instead of just putting everything out there.
All right, well, we're going to step aside, and when we come back, we're going to have Kelly's Corner. We'll also give you that stadium update I promised you and clear up some misinformation that's out there so that you guys know where everything's at. No, it's not delayed. That's the biggest thing you need to know. You're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
It's Tapped In at Topgolf. For tickets, go to topgolf.com.
CBS Sports Radio.
Hey, this is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Go Irish.
Timmy.
Yeah. Okay. Happy birthday,
Mr. President.
to Kelly. Yes, I cannot sing. I don't try to hide that fact. I don't even sing well in the shower.
Oh.
But today is Kelly's 40th birthday, so it's a very special edition of Kelly's Corner. And Kelly wants to talk about his birthday and celebrating birthdays in general. This is a wild card segment. It's not always on Raiders, not always on football. And we'll let him go. So, Kelly, it's your show, brother. Go.
Yeah, like you mentioned, yesterday was my 40th birthday. And all week, everybody's asking me, what are you doing for your birthday? What are you doing for, like, I'm working. They're like, oh, you have to do something. It's like, no, I'm not a 6-year-old. My birthday's not important. And I bring this up to just a little piece of advice. I've worked in bars for about half of my life now. If you're that group of people that come in on someone's birthday and act like you are a 6-year-old at Chuck E. Cheese, everybody that works in that establishment hates you. From the second you walk in the door, if you're 50 and you have a tiara and a sash on, nobody wants to
Where's
wait
my
on
free
you.
drink? It's my birthday.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Hey, always ask for something because some places do that. But if they say no, don't act like they just spit in your face because you didn't get something on your special day because you're a 46-year-old adult. There's nothing more annoying than that if you're working in the bar industry.
Somehow I'm picturing like a 6-year-old Kelly had a birthday and nobody showed up. And so now he's really angry.
Ever since.
He's really angry about it.
No, I always had to have my birthdays either earlier or later because during spring break when I was in school, everybody was gone.
So you had to have like
But
a week early or a week late?
Yeah. When you're 18, that's something to celebrate. 21
maybe
go
the
out with
last
your
one.
friends.
I always said
after 21, there is absolutely nothing that means anything
I
to
disagree.
you as an adult.
25, my car insurance went down.
Guess what? That doesn't happen as often as it used to anymore.
Well,
That's
ages me.
because that was always the kicker. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, at 25, your insurance is cheaper. I've
Not
got
anymore.
some friends who have didn't change anymore.
Wow.
So that's not even because that was always the mode I always joke about that milestone. But yes.
So-
If you're
so-
an adult, your birthday's not important to anybody.
So
but
you don't believe that? So you are having a milestone birthday
Why is it a milestone?
because you're still alive.
Well, you could say if you've known me 10 years ago, you could have said that from 29 to 38.
Congratulations.
True, but I think there are, and maybe it's because life expectancy used to be so short. You go back to the 19th century and 33 was old. Right? I mean, if you got into your mid-30s, you were old. So maybe that's where this kind of celebration. Now, I agree with you on the premise of your point because when I see people people that I've worked with over the years, what are you doing? Can I get this day off? Well, why? Well, it's my birthday. It's a Wednesday. So what? Celebrate your birthday on the weekend. I mean, I would give them their days off because they have them. But at the same time, it's like, really, you're doing a whole birthday weekend?
The birthday month thing, you're the worst person.
Who does that? Who does that?
If you sit there, it's my birthday month. No, you were born on one day. It's your birthday. You're just the worst person if you want to celebrate your birthday for a whole month.
The worst person in the world? Who does that segment? I forgot. It was Olbermann, I think it was. Okay, well, Kelly, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kelly.
I have a landmark birthday coming up.
Thanks, Dave.
Oh yeah, David, there he is. I have my 50th will be in November. Thanks, Chaz.
Oh.
I appreciate that.
I was
But anyway,
gonna say the years have not been kind.
thanks, brother. I always count on you guys to lift me up.
Yeah.
Okay, back to some Raider talk here. What I wanted to do was there was a lot of misinformation and jump to conclusions this week because there was a Stadium Authority Board meeting. You can go and read the story we put up on silverandblacktoday.com, which is Stadium on time despite erroneous reports, because they were. And where this all came from, this is where social media drives me nuts. I've made a living doing it at big corporations. I've done a lot of work in the area, but it drives me crazy because somebody sees a tweet and instantly, bam, it catches fire, even though there's more to the story. Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, who Raider fans really dislike because he likes to make fun of the Raiders. Raiders have been easy to make fun of, though, let's be fair. Put out a story saying the Raiders stadium was delayed, albeit 4 days. We all heard the same report because it was in a report at the stadium meeting. Well, what he didn't report was Rick Vallada, who we're going to have on the show next week from the RJ, right after said, well, no, it turns out Don Webb, who heads the project of the stadium, said, no, that was some subcontractor put that in. Those are the wrong dates. The date has not changed. It's still delivery, substantial completion, July 31st, 2020. The first game, they said, was August 6th, and now that's in jeopardy. The NFL hasn't made its schedule. You don't know what day the first game is going to be. In fact, you don't even know now what the games are for 2019. You know the schedule, teams, but you don't know the dates. So, again, people jump with this, and then, of course, the people who swear to God that this stadium is not going to be done on time ran with it too. But I just want to tell you guys, when you see things, just wait and make sure you look for reputable sources. Rick's one of them. We are there too. We go to the meetings and are there. So just make sure you do that. The stadium is not delayed. They had some pieces of the stadium delayed, but it's built by design so they can stop one area and start another area without delaying the project. Real quick, though, I want to update you on the finances. So the room tax that funds the stadium here in Las Vegas, which was part of the public financing, is 0.6% over projection, so just about projection. And for January, after a really strong end of last year, in fact, if you look at the monthly revenue for the hotel tax in December, which is a traditionally slow month here in Las Vegas, 6.2% over projection. It was just under 0.5% over projection for January, and that's preliminary numbers. And so overall, if you look at the project is, the tax is about $500,000 over what they projected, and that's from March 2017 when they started collecting through the projections for January. So you'll hear a lot of that, and if you're watching on video, I'm holding up this chart, and I invite you can go to the Stadium Authority's website, and you can get all this information. The charts, the videos, all that stuff is on there, and you can see it. But, guys, no stadium delay. It continues to be, I think, people who were against the project, whether they're from Oakland or Vegas. There's a lot of people in Vegas who didn't want it either. I think they're just salty.
Yeah. I just find it funny about how when people bring that up, it's like they're attacking Las Vegas. Like the city of Las Vegas is building this stadium. It's like the city of Las Vegas isn't building this. It's just being built in the city.
Right. Well, no, I think that's true. I think some of that is like civic pride. That's where I talked about being a Las Vegas fan, because I was at an event at the stadium site, and the guy who's the head of Cox Communications for all of the United States came, oh, how long have you been a Raider fan? I said, well, I'm not a Raider fan. I'm a fan of the Raiders doing well in Las Vegas, if that makes sense.
It does.
And he kind of was taken aback by it and said, oh, that makes sense. Oh, so it's business. And I said, yeah, it's business, but it's my hometown now in Las Vegas. I want them to do well. We're all investing money in it, so let's hope the stadium does well. It's going to also bring other things to the market.
Yep.
But I mean, the stuff you see on the internet, and I've gotten fooled. I mean, anybody here not been fooled by some link? You click on it. Now I'm much more skeptical on everything I see, so I wait. But that trap is so easy to fall into.
I don't believe anything I read on the internet, but I still read it because I have ample free time.
Fake news.
Yeah, the whole fake news thing. No, we're going to go now to one of our favorite guys here in the Las Vegas Valley, and that is our caller, Wally. Wally, you're on Silver and Black today. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Gully, what's going on?
Oh, just grinding it out, man. How you doing?
Hey, good. I got a couple things. For one, after you're 21, birthdays are for kids.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
And for
Thank
two,
you.
when the Raiders moved the first time to L.A., I was working for Hughes Aircraft in Tucson, and I tried to quit them. I couldn't do it. So finally, I just wouldn't let my girlfriend buy me anything that said L.A. Raiders. Just had to be just straight Raiders. So that's how I dealt with that. And then what are those big black things at the stadium? Are those roof supports? Could you find that out for me?
Yeah, there's some roof trusses there as well. And then if you drive down Dean Martin, it's kind of cool. If you drive down Dean Martin as you get towards the south end of the site where all the trailers are, there's actually panels, part of the glass panels that'll be on the outside, like they have almost like example stuff out there. It's really cool to go by and see because you can see how the glass and how the exterior of the stadium is going to look. But some of those roof trusses are there, and the delay in the steel, some of the steel that they're waiting for are those like, what are they called? L trusses that actually connect those to the top of the roof. So that's what they're waiting on. But yeah, a lot of that is roofing because they're going to get ready to put those on. They're going to put the equipment inside and kind of build the roof from the inside to the top. So it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, no, that's what you're seeing out there.
Hey, and one thing, Raider fans, if you guys want to check it out, go to Mandalay, just Google Mandalay Bay Raiders camera, and they have a camera up on the top of Mandalay Bay just pointing at the stadium, so you can watch them build it anytime you want on the internet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And they got a bunch of different angles, and then, of course, the Raiders have one on their website, which is on top of Mandalay Bay. So it's really cool. Yeah, people can keep track of it, and we had a viewer on Facebook who asked me, too, for a quick update on the Henderson facility. I'm going to get pictures this week for you guys and some video. Framing is up there, so they're starting to build the main building. The steel structure is going up there, so it's on track. We don't have a completion date yet, but it's coming close. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll close out the show. Take your calls at 702-889-5978, and we'll tie up some loose ends. You're listening to Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports.
1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
All right, welcome back. We are in the home stretch, and we're going to go out now on the phone lines, and we're going up the I-15 all the way to Salt Lake City, where we're going to talk to Eric, who wants to talk about the draft. Eric, what's up, man?
Oh, living it. How about you guys?
Oh, yeah, we're living the dream. We're enjoying the warmer temperatures. That's for sure.
Raider fan in Utah?
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's a good snowy day here in Salt Lake City, so
wow.
I'm up to go skiing.
All right.
But hey, just a couple comments, I guess. Was listening to the show earlier, and I found it surprising that people, I don't know, I love the Vontaze Burfict signing. Been a Raider fan for a very long time, and I just hope he brings the mentality to the Raiders that they need. Just the nasty. Yep. They need to be nasty. And I'll take a personal foul every once in a while if he brings a mentality to the team that will carry over and make them play harder. That I love about it.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think that Eric, I think that's what I was excited about for the organization was you get a guy, and yeah, he brings some baggage with him, but sometimes that's what you need. You need somebody to give you an edge, right? And if you look at how Gruden is and how the Raiders' mystique over the years and what their tradition is, I think it's a good fit.
I think so too. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be making road trips to come and see him when they get down there in a year or so. But main question, I guess, is just the draft. They've got to nail it. What do you guys think? Do they hold pat and take their three and just take best player available, or are they going to bundle up and go after Kyrie, which I don't think they should? I'd like to give Derek Carr another shot at it with everybody he's got around him now.
Well,
what do you guys think?
Well, I'll let Kelly go to this too, since he's our draft expert. But I'll tell you, I think what Mike Mayock said towards the end of the week, he said, what we've done in free agency is allowing us to be surgical in the draft, meaning they can focus. But at that same point, Kelly, you can be as surgical as you want, but in the draft, you have to take the best guy that's there. If there's a great athlete, even if you have depth there, you take him, don't you?
Yeah, the whole part about free agency, like I've always said, I would rather have the draft before free agency. But the reason free agency is before the draft is because if you're a smart team, you set yourself up to be able to take best player available to where you don't have glaring needs at a certain spot to pigeonhole into a certain position. With the Raiders having so many needs, they're I don't want to say they're pigeonholed into a certain thing, but edge is something they will have to at some point
have to address
go after.
Yeah.
So there are certain things they have to go after, but it doesn't have to be at 4. It doesn't have to be at 24. But, trading the 3rd, trading the 5th, taking away a few, that opens up. Maybe they'll trade down. Maybe they will try to get a couple more picks back that they got in the trade. But yeah, as far as where they're going to go, they're pretty much, they have that open availability if they want to move up, if they want to move back, because there's enough D-line talent in this draft where if you're in the top 15, you can get a guy who could be starting, in the edge. Right now, Cleveland Farrell's a name that's just falling down draft boards with the foot injury and some issues like that. I've seen some mock drafts that have him falling to the end, even to the Patriots at 32.
Wow. I
think there's no way he would get past Oakland at 24. But, see that, and that's the thing. You see names fall. Ja'Kai Polite was a guy who was a top 10. Then he just blows the combine, blows his interviews. He's looked at as a third-round prospect now.
Yeah.
So there's going to be talent out there to where they can go best available, go best fit, and they're not necessarily have to be. We have to have edge, linebacker, safety. Have to have number two wide receiver. They can open up to just see what falls to us.
Yep.
Well, and that to me is the edge. The edge, Eric, is still an issue because they haven't addressed it. So,
100%. I think Josh Allen or Ed Oliver. Is there a big drop off between the two of those?
Well, two different positions. I don't think you can play Ed Oliver on the edge. He's a gap shooting He's a gap shooting D tackle, which is why the fact he's fallen to 14 blows me away, because he played out of position at Houston way too much last year. They had him lined up right over the center, and that's just moronic because he's a small, fast guy that's going to shoot the gaps and just get to the quarterback, to where Allen's that prototypical 3-4 outside linebacker, 4-3 edge. I would prefer Allen, if I'm drafting, to be in a 3-4 to have him off the edge because he is so good in coverage. But he's got the speed and he's got the talent where you can throw him at a 4-3, throw him on the edge, and he's just going to be a monster.
Well, and let me say this too to you, Eric, is our good friend Mo Moten over at SB Nation and a couple other spots where he writes. Mo's a great friend of the show. He found an old quote from Paul Gunter talking about the type of players he likes on defense. And I'll paraphrase it, but he said he likes to have good ends that can drop into coverage, right? Because it allows you to show more, it allows you to do more things. That's Josh Allen, if he's there. So I think if Quinnen Williams is there, you take him at 4. If Josh Allen's there, you take him at 4. I mean, to me, if it's me, that's who I go with. But the Allen on the edge and being able to drop back to that versatility, I like a lot.
Yep. Eric, let me ask you a quick question. Being in Salt Lake City, I've been up there a few times. I know it's a basketball city, NBA, state. What about NFL? I guess geographically, it's mostly Broncos. What are you seeing up there as far as NFL fans?
I love Donkey fans. It's bad. But and Dallas too. But there's a fair Raider following here. There's a good club that meets on Sundays, watches the games, but I mean it's mostly college. It's a BYU town for the most part.
Sure.
Whatever.
Long tradition of good college football up there, Utah and at BYU. All right, Eric, thanks for joining us, man. We're going to cut out of here. We got to leave.
Thanks, Eric.
Right on.
All right. Man, the show's over. I want to first talk about, real quick, preview next week's show. Who's going to be with us? Rick Vallata, longtime award-winning business writer for the RJ, covers the stadium stuff. We'll talk about that with him. Also, Raiders draft and player evaluation with one of the best in the business, Emery Hunt from Football Game Plan, and Ryan Young from Yahoo Sports will join us to talk about the NFL's TV plans for year and how that might impact you, and much, much more. Kelly Kreiner, happy 40th birthday. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Chaz, as always, thanks for being here, too.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Pleasure.
And thank all of you, most of all, for being with us today here on Silver and Black Today. Stay connected to us, silverandblacktoday.com. Check us out on Twitter, silverblack2day. Don't miss it. For my co-host, Kelly Kreiner, Chaz Osborne, and engineer David Stepanian, we sign off, but we never say goodbye, Raider Nation. Thanks for listening, and until next week, as always, may the autumn wind be at your back. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Take care.